Good morning. As you can see, I'm just a tad slow this morning, or this afternoon when I'm recording this. I hope I can pick it up as we go through line by bit or line. I apologize in advance. You may hear my neighbor's motorcycle. You may hear my neighbor's dog barking. We are dealing with the spring weather, and there'll just be a little more noise than we had last couple of weeks when we were dealing with negative 20. I don't want to treat people as if they are idiots. I don't want to treat people as if they are children. You are all adults. Nonetheless, I need to organize my life. And so I work through and organize, as I work through and do that, I sometimes assume that other people may need reminders about organization as well. So a quick reminder, papers due tonight, 11:59 p.m. We are continuing Macbeth through spring break. Remember that March 5th, or up until spring break, remember that March 5th, we have presentations, and we have the quiz. With Julius Caesar, with Othello, I believe I talked about the idea that tragedy is a person of high station brought low through a flaw in character. And I think, or at least I hope I mentioned several times, that the tragedy has to be somewhat predictable. And in theory, what makes it a tragedy is not that bad crap happened, but that all of the bad crap that happened was predictable and preventable. You'll notice Macbeth is the first speaker on the left. He knows that they are imperfect speakers. I understand that imperfect might mean incomplete, but even so, the fact that they are incomplete speakers, the fact that they are not giving him the whole story, and that he knows it, means that a lot of his actions are taken with knowledge that he doesn't know everything. And as a soldier, he should be aware of the fact that he should know his enemy, or his ally for that matter, better than the incomplete way he knows the witches. Banquo goes a step further. He's explaining that the instruments of darkness tell us truths, win us with honest trifles. In other words, they win us over with honest things that are of little importance, and they betray us with the most important things because they only tell half truths, they only tell partial truths. Had Macbeth listened to Banquo, had Macbeth listened to himself, A, we wouldn't have the play, and B, the tragedy would have been preventable. Keep going. You'll notice that he's back to the fair is foul, foul is fair, but he notes that it cannot be ill, it cannot be good. In other words, it is imperfect. You'll notice that the murder is yet but fantastical, that it should be smothered in the thinking about it, that it unfixes his hair, that it makes his heart knock against his ribs, that it is against the use of nature, the heart knocking, but the act of killing the king is against the use of nature for Macbeth and people in Shakespeare's time. And again, those two bolded lines: cannot be ill, cannot be good, fair is foul, foul is fair. Nothing is but what is not. Fair is foul, foul is fair. That link back to the witches indicate that A, he should know better, but B, he's heading down that line. And part 3. Chance would have me king. Why can't I just wait? And for Duncan, he's just been betrayed by the Thane of Cawdor. Here he realizes there's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. He realizes that he doesn't know who or what he can trust. And yet he automatically trusts Macbeth. He automatically believes that everything's going to be fine when he goes to Macbeth's castle. And he has some reason. I mean, Macbeth stood loyal. But that doesn't mean that he should be totally safe in this situation. Duncan makes the same mistake here that he made with the previous Thane of Cawdor. I should have a title slide here. I'm not sure if I don't, but this is the equivalent of Macbeth's version of the, fashion it thus speech, or the candle speech in Othello. And Macbeth draws the right conclusion. At the end of the speech, when Lady Macbeth comes in, he says, "We're not going any further." But if you look, if it could trammel up the consequence and catch with his Circe success, that but this blow might be the be-all and end-all here, but here upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump the life to come. He knows that, A, murdering Duncan is not going to end everything. He knows that there are going to be other murders. He knows that there's going to be consequences that he's going to have to deal with. He hopes that he can escape heaven's judgment, or him, but he knows, if you keep reading, that he still has a judgment here. He knows that bloody insurrections, which being taught, return to plague the inventor. He knows all of this. He is successfully talking himself out of all of the problem, or out of the assassination. He even gives himself moral reasons not to. He's a kinsman. He's a subject of the king. Killing the king is an act against nature. Plus, Duncan has been nice to him. Duncan has given him all sorts of, honors. And the only thing he has to keep him moving forward is his ambition. The only thing he has to keep him moving forward is what amounts to his tragic flaw. And so we're dealing with the tragedy, but instead of talking himself out of it or trying to talk himself into it, the way Caesar did, the way Othello did, he is successfully talking himself out of it. And it's Lady Macbeth who pushes him into it. So let's take a look at Lady Macbeth. First of all, she understands her husband fairly well. This speech happens before the speech we just went through. And thou art not without ambition. He says he's got vaulting ambition, but without the illness that should attend to it. In other words, he wants to follow the moral law. He's not going to kill his kinsman. He's not going to kill somebody to whom he has given hospitality, or he's supposed to give hospitality. He's not going to murder a king because that's an act against nature. He doesn't have the illness to attend to it. She knows that. And so she knows that it's her job to push him over the edge. And she also knows that once he's pushed over the edge, he knows that there's all sorts of consequences, that he's going to have to deal with all of that. She's going to have to deal with all of that. But it's her ambition combined with his that provides the spur to keep things going. And it's her ambition that overcomes the milk of human kindness. There's a certain irony with the word valor here. Remember, the valor means courage and whatever all else. Here, the valor of her tongue is going to chastise him. The valor of her tongue is what's going to push him over the edge. And he's going to get the crown because she wants it, because she can push him to get over. Notice she called that I might pour my spirits into thine ear. All right. The idea that she is going to call on spirits just as the witches seem to be able to call on spirits. That she is going to do it not through just her tongue and her valor and her physical presence. She is going to do it through that spiritual thing, through the porous nature, the enchanted nature of things that we talked about on Monday. And we picked Come You Spirits That Tend to Moral Thought. Notice the same thing. And then notice the unsex me here ties us back to the witches. You should be women, but your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so. And then she asks to not have the consequences, not have the guilt, not have all of the stuff. And notice also, we're going back to the milk of human kindness. Here she's talking about the ability to nurse a child, and she wants mother's milk, something that is supposed to be the purest thing on earth. She wants that to turn into gall. Okay? She's praying for murdering ministers and sightless substances. I suppose I could go on a little bit of rant on alliteration here, but I don't think that that's the key part of all of this. And then finally, she asks for darkness. Remember that, in Macbeth or in Othello, Iago, was going to bring the Dark Knight thing into light. And we've got prayers about, heaven not seeing stuff in other plays. The idea of all of this happening in darkness, I think, is a big chunk of, again, tying it back to the witches, tying it back to evil. Of course, there's still more Lady Macbeth. Notice that Lady Macbeth is smart enough to anticipate that Duncan might be on edge. And so Duncan, who knows there's no art to finding the man's construction in the face, she is now telling him that his face is something that can be read, that even Duncan might be able to see through it. So get your poker face on. Your hand, your tongue look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. All right? In other words, you have to put on an act. Duncan can't read you if you do it well. All right? And then notice on the right, you shall put this night's great business into my dispatch. I'm going to take care of it. Okay? I'll take care of it. And then we'll go on from there. But put this in my hands tonight. In other words, Lady Macbeth seems to be the one driving all of this stuff, and we'll talk about the impacts of that later. But she seems to be the one driving everything here. And in a lot of ways, that unsex me here, she is almost, for lack of a better phrase, becoming more male than Macbeth. I'm always interested in Shakespeare with this idea of the human and the animal. Notice that Macbeth says he wants to do it, and then just before this, he says, we're done. And then she says, was it a beast that made you break this enterprise to me? And then, when you do it, you're a man. Right now, I'm more manly than you are. And in fact, I am so manly that had I promised to take a nursing babe and dash its boneless gums or dash the brains out, I'd have done it. I'm more of a man than you are. And I think she keeps chastising Macbeth. She keeps pushing Macbeth's idea of valor. She keeps challenging his manhood as she pushes through this, to get him to murder Duncan and take the throne. At the same time, man up, stir your courage to the sticking place, and will not fail. There is, however, then a sudden switch, or at least I think there's a sudden switch. His two chamberlains will I with wine and wassail so convince that memory, the warder of the brain, shall be a fume and the receipt of reason. In other words, it's entirely possible that she is still saying, I'm still going to be a man, and I'm going to drink those two chamberlains who are there to protect him. I'm going to drink them under the table so that they're so drunk we can walk in and kill them. Okay? At the same time, Shakespeare always gives students and scholars both topics to argue about. Wassail is an early English toast to someone's health, so we're just going to be toasting to Duncan, toasting to Duncan, toasting to Duncan. It was a hot drink made with wine, beer, or cider, spices, sugar, and usually baked apples. And it was usually served at Christmas time. And it was riotous drinking and revelry. And that last one makes me think that she is perhaps acting like a woman who's going to use her charms to keep them drinking until they're drunk. That she's not going to drink them under the table herself, but that she is going to flirt. She is going to turn this into a party where there's a little dancing and a little, hint of impropriety with the lady of the house. And that the chamberlains are then going to, just feel more and more comfortable about drinking because she's flirting with them. It doesn't really matter. Wassail in your book just says the toasts. Other books, it kind of says the revelry. It doesn't matter. We can argue about it a little bit, but the fact is Lady Macbeth is taking charge. And whether she is doing it as being more manly, whether she is doing it as being, and for lack of a better phrase, a dominatrix driving Macbeth, or whether she is doing it as someone who's going to flirt with the Chamberlains, it really doesn't matter. She's the key to driving this early action in the play. Daily writing. Despite what I just got done saying about she's the key to driving it, I think it's entirely possible that in Act 1, we have three instigators. The Weird Sisters, Lady Macbeth, or Macbeth himself, who thinks about the murder almost immediately after he hears the prophecy, and who talks about his ambition being the driving force. All I want's your opinion. Which one is the driving thing? Give me a concrete detail or two or three to support your opinion, and we'll look to see you all on Friday. Hope everybody has a good day.